After age 60, many seniors notice an unsettling truth. The legs that once carried them with ease now tire faster, feel unsteady, or ache more than they used to. This isn't just normal aging, it's a warning sign. Leg weakness is more than an inconvenience. It's a predictor of loss of independence, falls, and even premature mortality. The problem is that too many people chalk it up to getting old and do nothing until it's too late. The truth is, much of this decline is preventable, and in many cases, reversible if you understand what's really going on inside your muscles, nerves, and metabolism. It's not just about exercise. It's about the silent forces from inflammation to insulin resistance that quietly erode your strength year by year. By addressing these root causes now, you can not only preserve your mobility, but actually reclaim the vitality you thought was gone for good. Sarcopenia is one of those clinical terms that sounds like it belongs in a medical textbook, not in your everyday life. But if you're over 60, it is already happening to you, whether you feel it yet or not. By definition, sarcopenia is the age-related loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. But that bland definition hides a much more sobering reality. This is the process that makes it harder to get out of a chair, climb a flight of stairs, or carry your groceries. It's the process that turns vibrant seniors into people afraid of falling. And it's the process that, left unchecked, accelerates the loss of independence. Here's the kicker. Sarcopenia doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly have weak legs. The decline begins as early as your 30s, but after 60 it accelerates like a rock rolling downhill. By the time most people notice it, they've already lost 20–40% of their muscle mass compared to their younger selves. The reason you don't see it in the mirror right away is because fat quietly replaces the missing muscle. You might weigh the same, your legs might look the same under clothing, but on the inside, the engine has shrunk and the fuel efficiency is worse than ever. Why does this happen? Part of it is biology. With age, your body produces less growth hormone and testosterone, both of which are crucial for building and maintaining muscle. There's also a decline in the sensitivity of your muscles to dietary protein, a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. In your 20s, a modest amount of protein in a meal sends a loud, clear signal to your muscles. Build. But in your 60s and beyond, that same amount barely moves the needle. Without deliberately increasing your protein intake and pairing it with the right kind of muscle-stimulating activity, your body quietly drifts into a catabolic state, breaking down muscle faster than it builds it. It's also a matter of lifestyle. As we age, we tend to move less, not just exercise less, but walk less, bend less, carry less. And muscles are like bank accounts. If you stop making deposits activity, the balance muscle mass dwindles. Worse, this loss is not linear, it's exponential. The less muscle you have, the less you can do. The less you do, the more muscle you lose. It's a vicious cycle that picks up speed unless you actively intervene. Then there's the metabolic piece. And this is where the story gets more interesting and more urgent. Sarcopenia is not just about aging muscles. It's about the entire hormonal and metabolic environment in which those muscles exist. Muscle is a major site for glucose disposal. In plain language, it's where your body burns sugar for energy. The less muscle you have, the less sugar you can burn, which means more of it lingers in your bloodstream. That pushes you toward insulin resistance, which further hampers muscle growth and repair. And insulin resistance is not just a blood sugar problem, it's a driver of inflammation, fat gain, and you guessed it, more muscle loss. This is why I say sarcopenia is not inevitable, but it is inevitable if you ignore it. You can't wish it away. You can't solve it by just walking more. Walking is good, but it doesn't send the high-intensity mechanical signals your muscle fibers need to stay thick and strong. To reverse sarcopenia, you need two main interventions: adequate protein, more than you probably think you need, and resistance training that challenges your muscles. And I mean challenges them, not just lifting a can of soup a few times. Now let's talk about the stakes. Sarcopenia is strongly linked to falls, fractures, hospitalizations, and mortality. Weak legs mean instability. Instability means falls. Falls in seniors often lead to fractures, which lead to long periods of immobilization. Immobilization is like pouring gasoline on the sarcopenia fire. Muscle melts away rapidly when it's not used. This is why a broken hip at 75 can set off a chain of decline that ends with a nursing home. It's not just the bone that broke, it's the loss of muscle power that robs you of your independence. Here's the part I wish more doctors would emphasize: this process is reversible at virtually any age. As long as you still have the will and the ability to move. Studies show that even people in their 80s and 90s can build significant muscle with resistance training. The gains may be slower, and recovery might take longer, but the body retains its capacity to adapt. The challenge is that most people don't start until they're already in trouble. The earlier you start, the better your odds of not just slowing the decline, but actually regaining lost strength. And yes, nutrition matters a lot. If you're not giving your muscles the raw materials they need, they can't grow, no matter how much you exercise. For most older adults, that means aiming for at least 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, and spreading it out across meals so each one contains a significant protein load. Combine that with resistance training at least 2 to 3 times per week, and you're sending your body the clearest possible signal: keep the muscle, build the muscle. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most seniors don't do this. They eat less protein as they age, often because of reduced appetite, chewing issues, or outdated fears about kidney health. They avoid resistance training because they think it's for younger people. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking, and the muscle bank account keeps draining. By the time they realize how much they've lost, the road back is harder, but still possible if they start now. So if you're over 60, sarcopenia is not a maybe. It's happening. The question is whether you'll fight it or let it run its course. The choice is stark, strong legs that keep you moving through your 70s, 80s, and beyond, or weak legs that turn every step into a balancing act. You can't turn back the clock, but you can change the trajectory. And the time to do that is before the weakness becomes the new normal. Your future mobility and independence depends on it. Most people think of muscle weakness as purely a muscle problem, as if your thighs are simply going soft with age. But there's a deeper, often invisible culprit that starts well before the muscle fibers themselves shrink: the gradual breakdown of the nerve-muscle connection. This is the electrical wiring that tells your muscles when, how fast, and how forcefully to contract. When that wiring frays, the best muscles in the world can't perform at full capacity. It's like having a perfectly good engine with a faulty ignition. The car won't run right no matter how much fuel you put in. Your muscles don't move on their own. Each muscle fiber is connected to a motor neuron, a nerve cell that carries the brain's command signals to your body. The junction where the nerve meets the muscle is called the neuromuscular junction. This is where the electrical signal gets converted into a chemical one, triggering the muscle to contract. It's an incredibly efficient system when it's young. But starting in your 50s and accelerating in your 60s and beyond, those motor neurons start to die off, and the neuromuscular junctions begin to degrade. The result? Fewer muscle fibers receive a call to action. The fibers that lose their nerve supply become inactive, and inactive fibers quickly atrophy. Even if you still have a decent amount of muscle mass, the loss of nerve input means you can't fully recruit it. That's why you may notice your legs feeling sluggish or unresponsive rather than just weak. It's also why you might stumble on uneven ground even if you think you're paying attention. Your muscles simply aren't firing with the precision they once did. The causes of this breakdown are multifaceted. Some of it is pure aging biology. The spinal cord loses motor neurons over time, and the surviving neurons can't always sprout new branches fast enough to reinnervate abandoned muscle fibers. There's also oxidative stress, the slow accumulation of cellular damage from free radicals, which chips away at both nerve cells and the delicate structures of the neuromuscular junction. Chronic inflammation, the same low-grade inflammaging that damages muscle tissue directly, also interferes with nerve health. And if you have metabolic problems like insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, you're at even greater risk, because high blood sugar and poor circulation can damage nerve fibers from the inside out. But here's the part most people don't realize. Inactivity makes this worse, much worse. When you don't use your muscles at a high enough intensity, your brain and spinal cord downsize the nerve connections. The body is ruthlessly efficient. If it sees you're not challenging your muscles, it concludes, we don't need this many nerve fibers to maintain this level of activity, and starts dismantling the excess. This is the neurological version of use it or lose it. And once those nerve connections are gone, regrowing them is a slow, incomplete process at best. This is why older adults can lose strength much faster than they lose actual muscle size. The wiring is failing faster than the structure. You might still have enough fibers to do the job, but the signal isn't getting through. It's also why strength training in seniors isn't just about muscle, it's about keeping the brain-muscle conversation alive and robust. Every time you lift something heavy, move explosively, or challenge your balance, you're sending a loud, clear message to your nervous system. We need these connections. Keep them. Strengthen them. The decline in nerve-muscle connections also affects something called motor unit recruitment. A motor unit is one motor neuron and all the muscle fibers it controls. Younger people can activate a large percentage of their available motor units quickly, which is why they can sprint, jump, or change direction with ease. Older adults often have fewer motor units to begin with, and the ones that remain fire more slowly. This doesn't just limit peak strength, it limits power, the ability to produce force quickly, and power is often more important than raw strength when it comes to preventing falls. You don't need to lift a refrigerator, but you do need to react fast if you trip on the curb. So, what can you do to preserve or even restore the nerve-muscle connection? First, you need to challenge your nervous system regularly. That means more than just walking or cycling at a steady pace. Activities that involve coordination, balance, and rapid force production are key. Resistance training is crucial, especially with free weights or resistance bands where you have to stabilize the load. Movements like squats, step-ups, and lunges require your brain to coordinate multiple muscle groups at once, reinforcing those neural pathways. Adding in balance work, standing on one leg, walking heel to toe, or using a wobble board forces your nervous system to fine-tune control. Second, address the metabolic and inflammatory factors that speed up nerve decline. That means controlling blood sugar through diet and exercise, keeping chronic inflammation in check by minimizing ultra-processed foods, and making sure you get adequate sleep, because nerve repair happens most during deep sleep stages. Nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, especially B12, and antioxidants also play a role in nerve health. Many older adults are deficient in B12, sometimes without symptoms, until nerve damage is well underway. If you're over 60, checking your B12 levels is a simple but often overlooked step in protecting your nerves. Finally, don't underestimate the role of novelty. Your brain thrives on new challenges. Learning a new skill, dance steps, tai chi, pickleball, forces your nervous system to adapt in ways that routine activities do not. This isn't just good for your brain. It's good for the electrical wiring that connects your brain to your muscles. The tragedy is that many seniors accept slower reflexes, poorer balance, and weaker legs as just aging. They don't realize that they're watching the slow erosion of their nerve muscle network in real time, and that it's something they can influence. The reality is, once the wiring is gone completely, it's much harder to rebuild. But if you catch the decline early, you can keep those connections robust for decades longer than you think. Your muscles might be the visible part of your strength, but your nervous system is the unseen command center. Protecting one without the other is like trying to keep a light bulb working while ignoring the fraying wires in the wall. If you're over 60, the time to reinforce that wiring is now before the lights start flickering, because once they go out, every step you take will be in the dark. If muscle loss and nerve deterioration are the structural and electrical problems behind weakening legs, chronic low-grade inflammation is the silent saboteur running in the background, the kind you don't feel directly, but that erodes strength day after day. Most people hear inflammation and think of a swollen ankle after a sprain or the redness around a cut. That's acute inflammation, your body's short-term targeted repair system. It's essential, and without it, you'd never heal from injury or infection. But the kind of inflammation we're talking about here is different. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, is not a helpful repair process. It's a persistent, low-level immune activation that never turns off. There's no obvious redness or swelling, but beneath the surface, your immune cells are quietly firing chemical signals, cytokines, prostaglandins, free radicals that damage tissues, interfere with normal repair, and accelerate degeneration. In the context of your legs, this is a triple threat. First, inflammation damages muscle fibers directly, breaking down the proteins that give them strength and structure. Second, it interferes with the signaling pathways that tell your muscles to grow after exercise or protein intake. Third, it contributes to the deterioration of the nerve-muscle connections we just discussed. In other words, it attacks every part of the strength system at once. The tricky part is that chronic inflammation often comes from places you wouldn't expect. You don't have to have arthritis or an obvious autoimmune condition. For many people over 60, it's driven by excess visceral fat, the kind that wraps around your organs and pumps out inflammatory chemicals 24/7. Even if you're not visibly overweight, you can carry hidden visceral fat that acts like an internal factory for inflammation. Add to that years of consuming ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, and seed oils, and you have a steady drip of inflammatory triggers entering your bloodstream every day. Another major source is poor metabolic health. High blood sugar, insulin resistance, and advanced glycation end products, AGEs, sticky sugar protein compounds that accumulate in tissues, all irritate the immune system. This is why people with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes often see muscle loss and weakness earlier. Their muscles aren't just starved of nutrients, they're being constantly bathed in a low-grade inflammatory soup. Then there's the role of the gut. As we age, the integrity of the gut lining can weaken, a phenomenon known as leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. This allows fragments of bacteria and undigested food particles to slip into the bloodstream, triggering immune activation. It's like having a smoldering fire in your kitchen that constantly sets off smoke alarms in the rest of the house. Your immune system responds, but because the trigger never fully goes away, the response never stops. Chronic inflammation also slows recovery. In your younger years, after a bout of activity, your body efficiently shifts into repair mode, rebuilding muscle stronger than before. But when inflammatory chemicals are elevated, the repair process stalls. Your body is too busy putting out constant fires to focus on building new tissue. Over time, this means you recover more slowly from exercise, you lose muscle faster, and you're more likely to injure yourself, which only fuels more inflammation. And here's the cruel irony. The weaker your legs get, the less you move. The less you move, the more inflammation builds. Skeletal muscle isn't just for movement, it's a metabolic organ. When it contracts, it releases anti-inflammatory compounds called myokines. These act like internal cleanup crews, countering the effects of inflammatory cytokines. If you move less, you produce fewer myokines, which means inflammation gets a free pass to run wild. So how do you break the cycle? The first step is to remove as many inflammatory triggers as possible. That means cutting back drastically on ultra-processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and industrial seed oils. These are like pouring lighter fluid on the smoldering coals. Replace them with whole, nutrient-dense foods, vegetables, low-sugar fruits, quality proteins, and healthy fats from sources like olive oil, nuts, and fatty fish. These provide the antioxidants, amino acids, and micronutrients that help your body resolve inflammation instead of fanning the flames. Next, you have to move even when you don't feel like it. Resistance training, walking, and especially activities that get your heart rate up and your muscles contracting vigorously all stimulate anti-inflammatory myokines. Even short bursts of activity matter. 10 minutes of bodyweight squats, step-ups, or light dumbbell work can begin to tip the scales back in your favor. Sleep is another underestimated anti-inflammatory tool. Deep sleep is when your body performs its most important tissue repair work, clears metabolic waste from the brain, and resets immune function. Skimping on sleep or having untreated sleep apnea keeps inflammatory markers elevated and accelerates physical decline. Stress management is also critical. Chronic psychological stress triggers the release of cortisol, which in small doses is useful, but in chronic excess promotes muscle breakdown, insulin resistance, and, you guessed it, more inflammation. Meditation, breathing exercises, and even short breaks in nature can lower stress-induced inflammatory responses. Some people benefit from targeted supplementation. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil can dampen inflammatory pathways. Vitamin D, often low in older adults, plays a key role in immune regulation. Curcumin from turmeric has well-documented anti-inflammatory effects, especially when paired with black pepper to enhance absorption. But supplements are exactly that, supplemental. They work best on top of a foundation of solid diet, movement, and sleep. Here's the part most people miss. Reducing inflammation is not about chasing numbers on a blood test. It's about restoring balance in the body so that your immune system can go back to doing what it's supposed to do, respond when needed, then stand down. When inflammation is under control, your muscles respond better to exercise, your nerves function more efficiently, and your recovery time shortens over months and years. This can mean the difference between legs that hold you steady and legs that give way when you need them most. The damage from chronic inflammation is cumulative and silent until it's not. The first sign might be muscle weakness, slower walking speed, or a stumble that rattles your confidence, but by then the process has been running for years. The sooner you address it, the more strength, coordination, and independence you can preserve. Think of it like corrosion on electrical wiring. You can slow it down and protect the system, but only if you start before the wires crumble completely. If you're over 60 and your legs are getting weaker, don't just look at the muscles. Look at the silent simmering fire in your body. Put it out now and you give your muscles and your future mobility a fighting chance. When most people think of metabolism, they picture how quickly they burn calories or how easily they gain or lose weight. But metabolism is much more than that. It's the sum total of every chemical reaction that keeps you alive. And when it starts to malfunction, it doesn't just affect your waistline, it affects your muscles, your energy, your brain, and yes, the strength of your legs. Metabolic dysfunction is like a slow leak in your body's energy pipeline. Your muscles are some of the hungriest tissues you have. They need a constant supply of fuel to contract, repair, and grow. When the systems that deliver that fuel start to fail, your muscles starve. Even if you're eating enough, over time, they shrink, weaken, and lose endurance. This isn't a muscle problem in isolation. It's a whole body energy crisis. One of the main drivers of metabolic dysfunction after 60 is insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone that allows glucose sugar from your food to move from your bloodstream into your cells where it's burned for energy or stored for later. In a healthy system, insulin rises after you eat, delivers the fuel, then drops back down. But decades of high sugar, high processed food diets combined with too little physical activity make your cells less responsive to insulin's signal. When this happens, two damaging things occur at once. Sugar piles up in your bloodstream and your pancreas pumps out even more insulin to try to force the sugar in. That excess sugar sticks to proteins in your body, creating advanced glycation end products, AGs that damage blood vessels, nerves, and muscle tissue. The excess insulin itself is also a problem. It promotes fat storage, fuels inflammation, and interferes with the body's ability to burn stored fat for energy. Now, here's the part that directly affects your legs. Skeletal muscle is the largest glucose sink in your body. When you lose muscle mass, whether from sarcopenia, nerve muscle breakdown, or simple inactivity, you lose a huge chunk of your glucose disposal capacity. This makes insulin resistance worse, which then makes it harder to build or maintain muscle. It's a vicious cycle. Less muscle leads to worse metabolism, and worse metabolism leads to less muscle. But glucose isn't the only fuel your muscles need. Healthy metabolism also means your cells can efficiently switch between burning sugar and burning fat, depending on availability. This flexibility, called metabolic flexibility, tends to erode with age, especially in people who are insulin resistant. The result? Your muscles get stuck in sugar-burning only mode. When the sugar runs low, they don't smoothly transition to fat burning. Instead, you feel fatigued, weak, or shaky, and your performance drops. Mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your muscle cells, play a key role here. They take in fuel and turn it into ATP, the actual energy currency your body uses. But mitochondrial function declines with age, and metabolic dysfunction speeds up that decline. High blood sugar, high insulin, and chronic inflammation all damage mitochondria directly, reducing both their number and their efficiency. Think of it as having fewer power plants running at half capacity. Your muscles just can't produce the same output, no matter how hard you try. Poor nutrient delivery is another consequence of metabolic dysfunction. Damaged blood vessels, a common byproduct of insulin resistance and high blood sugar, can't supply your muscles with oxygen and nutrients as efficiently. This starves your muscles not only during exercise but during recovery, when they need amino acids, oxygen, and energy to repair and grow. It's like trying to rebuild a house when the delivery trucks can't get down the road. The work just doesn't happen on schedule. All of this makes your legs feel weaker, heavier, and slower, not just because the muscles themselves are smaller or less conditioned, but because the entire energy supply chain is compromised. And here's the kicker: you can feel these effects long before they show up on a blood test. You might notice you get tired faster on stairs, or your legs feel like lead during a walk you used to do easily. That's metabolic dysfunction showing itself in real time. The good news is that this decline is not inevitable. Metabolic dysfunction can be slowed, stopped, and often reversed with the right approach. Step one is to address insulin resistance head-on. That means cutting back on added sugars and refined carbohydrates, the white bread, pasta, pastries, sweetened drinks, and processed snacks that spike your blood sugar. Whole, unprocessed foods, vegetables, quality proteins, healthy fats keep blood sugar steadier and reduce the constant insulin surges that wear down your metabolism. Step two is to build back your muscle mass and mitochondrial capacity. Resistance training isn't just for strength. It's one of the most powerful tools for improving insulin sensitivity. Every time you contract your muscles under load, you're opening up glucose transport pathways that work even without. Over time, this helps your cells become more responsive to insulin again, reducing the metabolic strain. Step three is to move throughout the day, not just during formal workouts. Long periods of sitting impair glucose clearance and make your muscles forget how to respond to insulin. Even short movement breaks, Standing, stretching, walking for a few minutes can help keep fuel flowing into your muscles where it belongs. Nutrition also plays a role beyond just cutting sugar. Adequate protein supports muscle repair and growth, while omega-3 fatty acids help protect mitochondrial membranes. Certain micronutrients, magnesium, chromium, and the B vitamins, are essential for the enzymes that run your energy metabolism. Deficiencies in these are surprisingly common in older adults and can worsen fatigue and weakness. One often overlooked strategy is improving sleep quality. Poor sleep impairs glucose metabolism in as little as one night, and chronic sleep loss can drive insulin resistance as effectively as a bad diet. Since deep sleep is also when growth hormone is released, a key player in muscle repair, sleep becomes a metabolic intervention in its own right. Addressing metabolic dysfunction isn't just about better lab numbers. It's about restoring the full energy supply chain to your muscles so they can do their job, propelling you forward, keeping you balanced, and letting you live without fear of fatigue or falls. The stronger your metabolism, the more responsive your muscles will be to training, and the more power you'll have in every step. If you ignore metabolic dysfunction, your legs will be the first to tell you, not with a polite warning, but with slow, relentless weakness. But if you fix it, they'll repay you with strength, endurance, and stability that can carry you well into your later years. If there's one thing I've learned in decades of looking at how our bodies decline, it's this: motion is life. The human body evolved to move, to lift, to climb, to squat, to run, to carry. And the moment you stop moving enough, every system in your body starts to shift into decline mode. For many people over 60, the most destructive force weakening their legs isn't a specific disease, genetic curse, or even a major injury. It's the slow compounding effect of simply not moving enough. That's the sedentary lifestyle spiral. The spiral begins subtly. Maybe you have a sore knee, so you cut back on long walks. Maybe you retire from work and no longer have the built-in daily activity of commuting, stairs, or moving around an office. Or maybe you just take it easy because you've been told that's what older adults should do. At first, nothing seems different. You can still get up, still shop for groceries, still get around the house, but beneath the surface, your body is recalculating and not in your favor. Here's why. Muscles are incredibly adaptive, but they're also incredibly efficient at conserving energy. If you don't challenge them, they start shrinking. Not just a little bit, measurable loss in weeks. The longer you stay inactive, the more muscle you lose. And once muscle is gone, your strength and endurance drop. That means everyday activities feel harder, which makes you less inclined to do them. That's the first loop of the spiral: less activity, weaker muscle, less activity. But it doesn't stop with muscles. When you're sedentary, your cardiovascular system also deconditions. Your heart becomes less efficient at pumping blood, and your blood vessels lose elasticity. This means your muscles get less oxygen and nutrients during activity, so they fatigue faster. That fatigue feeds back into the cycle. You stop sooner, you move less. The spiral tightens. Your nervous system also joins the decline. Balance and coordination depend on constant practice. Every time you walk on uneven ground, shift your weight, or catch yourself from stumbling, you're training the neural pathways that keep you upright. Stop challenging those pathways, and they weaken. You start to feel less confident on your feet, which leads you to avoid activities where you might feel unstable. But by avoiding them, you lose even more balance and agility. Metabolism suffers too. As we've already seen, muscle is a primary site for glucose disposal. Less muscle means more glucose floating around, more insulin resistance, and more fat storage, particularly visceral fat, which drives inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. This makes it even harder to move, not only because of weight gain, but because inflammation can cause joint pain and stiffness. And joint pain? That's another excuse to move less, which pulls you deeper into the spiral. This cycle is insidious because it feels logical while it's happening. You feel tired, so you rest, You feel unsteady, so you avoid walking far. You have pain, so you stop the activity that triggers it. In the short term, these seem like sensible choices. In the long term, they're a slow surrender. You're trading momentary comfort for a steeper decline later on. The most dangerous stage of the spiral comes when daily functional movements start to feel like workouts. If standing up from a chair leaves your legs shaky, or climbing stairs makes you short of breath, you're already deep in the loop. The less you use your legs, the faster they weaken, and the weaker they get, the harder it is to use them. At a certain point, breaking free becomes much harder because you have to work against both physical weakness and psychological fear of falling or injury. The good news is that this spiral can be interrupted at any age. But the longer you've been in it, the more deliberate your intervention needs to be. The first step is to move more than you currently do, even if it's just a little. This doesn't mean jumping into an intense gym routine, which could backfire if you're deconditioned. It means integrating movement back into your daily life, standing up every 20-30 minutes, walking short distances multiple times a day, choosing stairs when possible, and doing simple leg strengthening exercises like sit-to-stands or step-ups at home. Once your baseline activity increases, the second step is progressive resistance training. You have to send your muscles a signal that says, "We need you, stay strong." That means making them work harder than they're used to in a controlled way, so they adapt by growing stronger. Bodyweight exercises are fine to start, but over time you'll need to add resistance, bands, weights, or even household objects to keep the adaptation going. Balance and agility training should also be part of the plan. Standing on one leg, practicing heel-to-toe walking, or using a balance board can reawaken the neural pathways that keep you steady. These aren't just extras, they're critical to building the confidence that will keep you active in the long term. And here's where psychology plays a huge role. You have to push back against the cultural myth that slowing down is inevitable after 60. It's not. Yes, you may not sprint like you did at 25, but that doesn't mean you should settle for a life where standing up from a chair feels like a chore. The human body is adaptable until the day you die, but only if you keep giving it a reason to adapt. The sedentary lifestyle spiral is deceptive because it's comfortable at first. You can always find a chair. You can always take the elevator. You can always stay home instead of walking to the store. But that comfort hides a dangerous trade. Every time you choose less movement, you choose less strength, less resilience, and less independence in the years to come. The truth is, your legs are not just transportation, they're your foundation. They are the single greatest predictor of your ability to live independently as you age. Lose their strength, and your world gets smaller. Fewer outings, fewer activities, more dependence on others. Keep them strong, and your world stays open. Breaking out of the spiral doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. Move every day. Challenge your legs regularly. Refuse to let taking it easy become never moving. Because the less you move, the less you can move. And the less you can move, the less you live.